have a hard stop coming up at 4:30. I know we have a lot more commentaries that people would like to make. We are going to stop at 4:30. Go ahead, Keith.
Okay. Hi, Keith. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Major Amanda Feint. As an active duty service member and a mother of 2 small children who were poisoned by jet fuel in our Fort Island home and in the CDC, I want to publicly thank state and local leaders, Oahu Water Protectors, BWS, Sierra Club, and people like Big Al who just spoke for all your passion in keeping military families informed throughout this crisis. To the military leaders sitting on this panel, your words brief really well. But when it comes to transparency and your communication with us, your military service members, I feel confident in speaking for every military family here today. Your words are simply not true. Frankly speaking, you have failed our families. You failed to warn us about the May and the November spill. This prevented us from being able to protect our own children. Mine were 1 and 3 at the time. On November 29th, your base commander notified us that there was no indication our water was not safe. But you failed to mention that on the same day, DOH put out a public health advisory that our water was actually not safe. Why didn't you? As a service member, I cannot begin to describe the institutional betrayal I feel right now hearing you guys brief this committee today. Hearing you brief the media, Pentagon, and congressional leaders when I know firsthand how our families have actually been treated. How you've ignored us. How many phone calls and emails have gone unanswered. How we've been denied adequate medical care and gaslighted by your most senior medical leaders like Captain McGinnis. You've denied us water test results. You told me specifically to file a FOIA request for my test results when my daughter was in the hospital at Tripler. You've thrown out our samples, and I'm part of that group. You've silenced and you've retaliated against us for advocating for our own families and standing up for our fellow service and local community members who have been harmed by this crisis by you. You failed over and over and over again to notify us about meetings just like this one, where important information is being discussed about Red Hill. Admiral Barnett, shortly after you took command, sir, you appeared at one of these state meetings. Representative Ganadin read you a text he had received from a military constituent asking if you had notified your residents and service members about this meeting. That constituent was me. And you replied, sir, I believe it was a matter of public knowledge. Sir, since when did it become DOH or the state's responsibility to keep your service members informed? Secondly, you also said you weren't aware that families were experiencing ongoing health impacts from this crisis. I hope that after you've heard the CDC and ATSDR's back brief, you and other military leaders will quit downplaying the significance of how this crisis has impacted our lives. Let me tell you a short story. Since December 11th, my family members, including my civilian husband, and my 2 children, now ages 2 and 4, have gone to 96 medical appointments, 6 major medical procedures, 2 surgeries, including my husband just last week, and I just put my 2-year-old under to receive a bronchoscope in lavage to find out that he has lung damage from living his entire life on the island of Oahu. I have several questions. I'll start with the Navy. First, can you please provide everyone in this room, especially your military service members, the Navy's definition of what transparency means? Second, whose responsibility is it to keep your residents and your own service members informed? And how much longer will you send us on a wild goose chase for information and opportunities like this to hear updates about Red Hill and to have our concerns heard? 3, disclosure. You mentioned that on the leases that you are now disclosing Red Hill water crisis. Are you including whether that the hot water Are you including whether the hot water heaters have been replaced, whether your PVC pipes have been replaced, whether porous plastic hookups to your fridge and ice makers and washers and dryers and dishwashers have been replaced? Or are you just telling them that there was a water crisis? My next series of questions are for Diana Felton. And ma'am, you and I spoke back in January, and I really appreciate our conversations, but you've lost a lot of credibility with the military community, and here's why. That letter that Lacey was talking about, the one that you quoted, was on March 18th. It was actually on March 11th. And you did not, ma'am, tell doctors to see us and to treat us. You actually discouraged medical testing. You stated that you knew that we were going out and paying out of pocket because our own military doctors were not testing us and running any tests or toxicology labs. thousands of dollars people have spent to find out what's in our innocent children's bodies, and you discourage it. You quote said, they do not test. You recommended do not test them. That was your recommendation. And all the stuff that you just fed Lacey, that's not true, man. That's not in your letter. Your recommendation was that these medical providers do not test us. Period. 3 pages of that, ma'am. The second thing I have to ask you, Miss Diana Felton, is you told me, when I told you about my son's coughing, that now a year later I'm putting my 2-year-old under for the first time to get these testing. You told me that coughing and respiratory issues were a known and documented symptom from jet fuel exposure. In fact, the CDC briefed it today. Why have you discouraged the military from testing, doing air quality testing to test the vapors and the very things that we are breathing in our homes and in our soil after it rains and things like that? So that was a total of 5 questions. I would love for the military to start.
Well, good evening. One of the things I would like to say is regarding the communication and transparency is things like this and situations like this that we can get together and be transparent. And I think that Admiral Wade would acknowledge that also. We're going to work on that. And that's one thing that we will continue to do is have meetings and to make sure that our outreach is robust. Regarding future evolutions, I'm going to make sure, after talking to Mr. Lau, I think there's a way that we can align our social media footprint and websites a little bit more better, so we can make sure that this information gets out and all our military families have an opportunity to dial in and listen and participate in things like this. Earlier, I also stated I'm going to take it as an assignment to dig into the hot water issue that you discussed and also the other things to make sure that I'm doing right by the military families.
Yeah, Major Fine, I appreciate your honesty and your transparency. Mistakes were clearly made, and I've said it a number of times. I'm going to say it again. I'm sorry that your military that you are part of failed you here. I can't change the past, and it disturbs me to say that because I wish we were not in this position. It hurts me to hear about your 90-plus medical appointments and that your 2-year-old had to go under for a procedure. I am so sorry for that. What I can tell you is that I and all of us here in executing our duties as we look to the future are committed to get this right. I will tell you that having been on the island here during the spills, while not involved in any way, I know the confusion. I didn't know whether to bathe, to cook, to drink the water. I worked at U.S. Indo-PACOM. I had military personnel, both men, women, and also civilian, that worked for me, that were disrupted, put into hotel rooms, just the chaos, and the world didn't stop in executing our mission. So I'm deeply sorry that you and all others in uniform, dependents, and in the civilian community were impacted by this terrible, terrible incident. But we're committed to move forward here to defuel and to close and to remove this threat and to address all these other issues that everyone has eloquently put forward today. That's all I can say. I wish I could do more than what I've just said here, but I'm just speaking from the heart here. I'm so sorry.
Sir, thank you for your apology, but as a follow-up to my very specific question, whose responsibility is it to keep your military service members informed of meetings like this and any other meetings? Because you and both Admiral Barnett just said that you'll continue to do meetings, but when is the last time that you've done a town hall or any sort of info session with your military service members and their families who have been harmed by this?
Let me just tell you what I can tell you about me and the Joint Task Force. We were established 5 weeks ago, and we've been using the media for the first 5 weeks as a conduit to get out to the public because things have been happening so quickly as we've built this team and then moved out on unpacking. The FTAC was the first major, at least for the Joint Task Force, opportunity to engage with the public. And as I said, we have a town hall meeting in early December. and I'm committed to do more. I welcome invitations. This is a critical part of my mission, and I knew it coming into the FTAC. I know it with an exclamation point times 10 after hearing everyone's commentary today. We can't communicate enough, and I'm committed to do so.
Sir, thank you again. But again, whose responsibility is it to inform your residents and service members of meetings like this and any other meeting? You haven't answered the question. We have had to find this out from local and state community leaders. You'd probably have a lot more family members. We're talking 93,000 people were impacted, and the majority of them are your service members and their families. And they're not sitting in the auditorium today because you guys are not informing your family members, your military, your own people that you've poisoned. You're not informing them of meetings like this. This isn't the first time. So I'm asking again, please answer the question. Who is responsible? Is it the states? Is it the DOH's responsibility? Is it Ernie Lau's? Is it Sierra Club? Or is it yours? Is it your responsibility to tell your family members about these meetings, updates, and important information? Don't you think they have a right to know, sir? Whose responsibility is it to inform your service members about these meetings?
Let me just answer this since she's responding to me. Listen, I can't even begin to think what you're going through, and I know that this is hard. I continue to learn. I'm a life learner, and we're also a learning organization.
Sir, with all due respect, I appreciate your sentiments here, but I'd really love for you to answer my question because there's a lot of other people who have questions. And I have a very simple question. Whose responsibility is it to inform your service members of these meetings and updates? That's it. Like this back and forth, we can have that. You can have my phone number or email. We can talk all day long, sir. But I want to know who is responsible because I'm sick of being sent on a wild goose chase. And I speak for every military service family who's doing the same thing. Whose responsibility?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your feedback, and I guess the responsibility lies with me. This FTAC was a Department of Health invitation event. I didn't think to put the word out or to talk to Admiral Barnett to communicate this event. I will make sure that we do that in the future. So I really do, and I sincerely mean this. I sincerely appreciate your feedback, and we will do better.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, back over to you. All right. Just a reminder,